teacher, and hello everyone. I'm Chan Srinod, and this is my reflection blog. So on this reflection blog, we'll be talking about environmental problems, and in most of the videos it will be just me explaining through audio, if you don't mind, because I think it's better that way for the audio. Maybe it's better, it's just better. Okay, thank you. Now let's get into our content.
So in this video, we're only gonna talk about the chapter summary and my reflection on the chapter summary and then conclusion. So for this chapter summary, I have 4 main points. The first one is global context, globalization and environment. 2 is sociological series of environmental problems. 3 is environmental problem and solution, and 4 understanding of the environmental problems. So for global context, globalization and environment. So in these sections, we're going to talk about how globalization affects the environment.
Globalization affects the environment by one aspect is permeability of international border to pollution and environmental problems like the spread of chemicals and bioinvasion. The second aspect is the growth of transnational cooperation and free trade agreement. It's like getting agreement to get resources for free. So now you don't have to worry about having law restraining you from getting resources. The next part will be talking about sociological theories of environmental problems. Here are the 3 perspectives on environmental problems. So the first perspective is structural functionalist perspective, the second is conflict perspective, and the third one is symbolic interactionist perspective. Structural functionalist perspective here focus on how changes in one aspect affects the other. For example, agriculture, forestry, and fishing provide over 50% of all the jobs worldwide. Let's say that in another 50 years or so, the forest becomes scarce and the marine life shrink down. So what happened here is all those millions of people who was employed or get a job from that natural resource must find alternative livelihood. For conflict perspective, it focuses on how wealth and profit underlie many environmental problems. In developed countries, those countries use and consume a lot of natural resources to generate or make higher income and profits. What happens is that this generates higher amounts of pollution and waste. So in order to not pollute their country, they would do it in a least developed country. So all this waste and pollution would be delivered to the least developed country. For symbolic interactionist perspective, it's focused on how labels and meaning learned through interaction and the media affects environmental problems. Example here, let's say that we learn that it is good to recycle through interaction with our peers. So what big companies take advantage of this is that they use this as a means of manipulating us into buying their product, which let's say that they use greenwashing, which is a manipulative way that they do into getting you to buy their product, saying it's green, saying it's environmental friendly or eco-friendly, something like that it produces less carbon dioxide. So they manipulate you into buying those things, and then you learn, and then you buy, and then you make more waste. So our next point will be about environmental problems and solution. Environmental problems. There are many environmental problems all over the world, and one of them is the depletion of natural resources. There are several types of resource depletion, the most known being aquifer depletion, deforestation, mining for fossil fuels, and minerals pollution or contamination of resources. Overconsumption, excessive and unnecessary use of resources. So as the population grows, plus with the needs of our consumption, we have used a lot of natural resources. As you can see in the picture, there's this car cutting trees, deforestation. So we cut trees for our basic needs and also to make profits. The next problem is air, land, and water pollution. So air pollution is a mixture of solid particles and gases in the air. You see, this comes from the car emission, chemical from factories, dust, pollens, and mold spore that may be suspended as particles, and this will become ozone. The ozone is a gas that is a major part of air pollution in city. This ozone form air pollution that is also called smog. This could really harm the health of young children and small children, as they could face with asthma and many heart and lung disease. The next is land pollution. Land pollution is happening because of disposition of solid waste or liquid waste on the lands that make the land poison. There are a lot of chemicals that come out of factory that pollute the air. Most of them are nuclear waste that is very harmful and hard to get rid of. The next is water pollution. Water pollution occurs when harmful substances, often chemicals, contaminated a stream, river, lake, ocean, aquifer, or other body of the water, regarding water quality, rendering it toxic to humans or the environment. Global warming and climate change. So warming here is the gradual heating of Earth's surface, ocean, and atmosphere. It's caused by human activity, primarily burning the fossil fuel that pump carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. So this carbon dioxide acts as a glass which contains all the heat on Earth, making the Earth hotter. So what will happen after global warming is that there will be climate change. So when climate change happens, the Arctic ice in North Pole may melt sooner. So this will cause either flood and drought in some areas. This will also cause a lot of disaster, such as losing habitats and the depletion of natural resources too. So when there's a flood, you lose your house, and polar bear and penguin lose their inhabitants, and some place would be more dry due to the hot weather. Environmental illness and justice. As I've already mentioned above, children would be faced with many health issues facing with air, land, and water pollution. Environmental injustice refer to some places may be more affecting than some places, like Africa faced more disaster than the US, when the US was the one creating more chaos and more environmental problem, like they have nuclear waste and produce many factories producing many waste, while Africa doesn't do anything and still get the effects of those environmental problems. That is called environmental injustice. Threat to biodiversity. This has already been mentioned too. So since there is global warming and climate change, the biodiversity will be threatened, as many species would go extinct every 3 hours. Light pollution. Lastly, light pollution is the inappropriate or excessive use of artificial lights. So this will cause like glare, excessive brightness, sky glow, which drown out the sky over urban areas like in the picture. This will also cause disease like, I think they mentioned something like depression could be caused from staring at many lights at night. Also develop feeling of loneliness during the night when there are so many lights. So that's the end of the environmental problems. Let's move to the next point. Environmental solutions. So what we can do to help the environmental problem is using green energy. So green energy here is the renewable energy that is useful and is collected from renewable sources, which are naturally replenished on a human timescale, including carbon neutral sources like sunlight, wind, rain, tides, wave, and geothermal heat. So one of the green energy is solar power. As you see in the picture, there is a solar panel. This solar panel absorbs the light from the sun and it gives electricity for us to use at night. And wind power. There's also the wind fan or wind turbine on the first picture. This kind of wind turbines create energy from generating the wind. It uses the power of wind, and generate the energy for us to use. The third one is biofuels. Biofuel is a fuel that is produced through contemporary process from biomass, rather than a fuel produced by the very slow geological process involved in the formations of fossil fuels such as oil. So by using biofuels, we have lessened consumption of fossil fuels, which we use almost up to 86.1%. And another thing is hydrogen power. So hydrogen power here, in other words, is a hydrogen fuel, which is a zero emission fuels burned with oxygen. It can be used in fuel cells or internal combustion engines. It was used as a fuel for spacecraft propulsion. It's also used in car and fuel cell buses. And the next part, so what we can do to slow down the environmental problem is modification in consumer behavior. So you can introduce them green building, greenhouses that uses green energy, like I've already mentioned above, and also slow the population growth by you know what I mean. And the next things we can also do is the environmental activism. Environmental activism refers to the coming together of various groups of individuals and organizations that work in a collaboration in social, scientific, political, and conversational field with the main purpose of addressing environmental concerns. So here you can share each other opinion of either
environment concern, environment movement, and many other things addressing the environment. Another thing you could also do is environmental education. So environmental education is the process that allows individuals to explore environmental issues, engage in problem solving, and take action to improve the environment. As a result, individuals develop a deeper understanding of the environmental issues and have the skill to make an informed, responsible for the decision. Understanding environmental problems. So environmental problems are linked to corporate globalization, rapid and dramatic population growth, expanding world industrialization, patterns of excessive consumption, and reliance on fossil fuels for energy. So the growing evidence of the irreversible effects of global warming and loss of biodiversity, and the adverse of health effects of toxic waste and other forms of pollution suggest that we cannot afford to ignore environmental problems. This is the end of the whole main point. Now let's move to after going through the whole unit about environmental problem, I've understood a lot about it, and yep, we can all agree on practicing the 3R: reduce, and recycle. You don't have to start with the big recycling things. Maybe you just have to start with the small one. Maybe reduce what kind of plastic you use, keep it eco-friendly, and yep, reduce your unnecessary needs like plastic bag and stuff. And that's it for my reflection. Now let's move to the conclusion. Concluding to everything that I have said above about environmental problems and solution and reflection, and also the three perspectives of structural, functionalist, conflicts, and symbolist. It's all very interesting, and globalization too. So with all of this content, I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for listening to this video. Bye.